Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Lowdown on Low Code. As always, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to our latest topics. And today is actually a really good one. We've got a really cool guest and a great old friend with us here today. But I want to go back a little bit because one of the things we've been working on at analysis.tech, which is really crucial to today's content, is a research stream. And the research stream has been around this area of upcoming platforms, the AI application platform race, because we think that there is some very specific technical and functional requirements that are going to make up the platform that you're going to use to build AI enabled applications. And we highlighted a number of patterns in that research, and we highlighted a number of vendors in that research. And one of which was a strategy that was around data integration and orchestration as being, potentially a very critical pattern in your organization. And one of the vendors that we highlighted at that time in that research was Workato. So thing number one is go take a look at that research. It's on analysis.tech. It's free to download. All you have to do is sign up. Thing number two is earlier this year, we had Vijay Tella, CEO and founder of Workato, on with us. Great content, but the industry's moved like crazy. Our research has moved like crazy, and Workato has moved like crazy. So I'm here with Dave Marcus today. Dave, say hi, wave.
Hey, hi everyone. It's Rob. It's great to be back with you again, and particularly today, our guest. I happened to see him at the Workato event a couple of weeks ago, and that was a really good event as well. I'm coming to you today from a sunny spring South Africa. It's my time to be down here and move away from the Northwest for a few months. But good to be on the call, and really looking forward to today's session and the guest we have. So let me hand it back to you.
Oh, likewise. And right, fresh from his record-breaking, triumphant tour of Las Vegas, we have with us today old friend Adam Seligman of Workato. How are you, Adam?
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. What an honor.
What an honor to reach our
You guys are
massive
legends.
lowdown on low code audience.
Legends. Getting the
Hey.
lowdown from the legends.
Hey, Adam, speaking of legends, you've been around this industry for a long time. And one of the things that we love best about lowdown on low code is finding out where folks came from. How did you end up in this crazy industry, in this crazy space? What drew you in?
I want to say a story. I had like a graduate degree in computer science, so like came up from the coding side. And I worked at Microsoft in the early 2000s. And I kept getting these big internal arguments over who we were really trying to serve, what kind of developers we were really trying to big for. You know, Microsoft is famously focused on developers. You know, like Bill Gates, the founder, like they've always been a developer focused company. But I think there was this really deep set tension for the 8 years that I was there, like who really were they trying to serve? And I think when you build a technology company with a really high bar of skills, you know, like you hire really great people, you think that everybody is like you and you're engineers. And you can fall short sometimes of serving all the different kinds of engineers and technically oriented people in the world. So I think that was my starting point, was in the early 2000s at Microsoft. And this kind of big insight that, wow, there's more like a distribution of people with skills and interests and stuff. And wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to say you have to be this tall to ride the rides and everybody could participate? And that's just stuck with me like job after job, decade after decade. I'm sorry to say, from Microsoft through Salesforce, through Google, through AWS, and now at Workato.
That's great, Adam. Thanks. Yeah, Dave, go ahead and kick us off with the real grown-up questions.
Hey, Adam, can you comment a little bit about your transition to Workato? You know, a lot of what you've mentioned is you've been heavily focused around developer communities, developer audiences, you know, at Google, at Salesforce, at Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. What drove this transition that happened a few months back?
Yeah, well, you know, like you, I've been a fan of Vijay Tella's for a long time. I've known him for over a decade. I worked in the Salesforce community, and I saw Salesforce admins and developers were facing challenges and getting Salesforce to do all the amazing things they could do. they're having challenges connecting to things and driving actions in other systems. And actually, when I worked at Salesforce, we built like platform events and OData and change data capture and all this stuff to help connect this SaaS platform to other systems. But customers kept going back to Workato. They really like Workato for its ability to connect to things. Easy to use, super connected, cloud based, not a complicated on-prem Java thing. People really liked it. So I helped VJ this spring as he shifted the company to really fully commit to being an AI company. And he invited me to come on and help on that as CTO. And it was just an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit more about that. It's you know, it's interesting kind of watching Workato's, I call it reinvention in many ways. When I look at the last 2 to 3 years or so. But there's a ton that's going on right now. Everything from developers having new platforms, low code, vibe coding tools, this evolution of new kinds of developers that weren't really developers in the past, now building out code and coming up with these things. This whole idea of driving to agentic based applications. How do you see this all playing out? And I'll ask this because maybe there is an answer. Who do you think is going to be kind of a winner and why?
The winner-loser question. That's always the best question. Who's left out on the call? Hey, look, the way I look at it is LLMs are like Mr. Fusion. You remember that from Back to the Future? Like you throw in a banana peel in the fusion reactor and you get all the power, the car can fly. So we've got these like little Mr. Fusion things, but like, where do we put them? What do we do with them? Like, they're amazing, but you don't put a Mr. Fusion on a bicycle. Like, you don't need that. So we're in this moment where all of software, all of how people work is kind of being reinvented. And it's kind of all of a race to the same spot. LLMs will take on work that people would do and help them go faster and start transforming companies' operations and its relationships with its customers and its business processes. So kind of everybody's heading there. What I got so excited about is this vision that Vijay and Tella, the CEO of Workato, and as you mentioned, and Workato have of delivering that in a way that really matters for businesses. And that's probably not as an island. It's not putting a Mr. Fusion on a bicycle. It's not putting a Mr. Fusion on a CRM app. It's not putting a Mr. Fusion on your infrastructure layer. It's putting it where your business processes live, where all your customer data is, all your business processes are, all of your systems you take action in. Your business processes span across multiple different applications. The heart of what makes your business competitive is how well can you serve customers? How well can you build new products? How well can you respond to changes? How well can you operate efficiently? And that doesn't live in one app for the most part. It generally is. The classic example, I went to a customer yesterday, 2 days ago in Phoenix. And, like when I prep for that customer, I don't just want the sales data. I want to know like the customer service data. I want to know what's going on in their business. I want to know if we have like an outage or something terrible. I don't want to walk in and be talking about new stuff when we got to make the old stuff work. So that's 4 different systems at least. So I got really excited about Workato as the company that uniquely could make Mr. Fusion a reality, make agents a reality in the enterprise because of what Workato does, which is connect everything and run your business processes and transform your operations. Just the right place. So that was the vision. I got really excited about it. And now the entire company is running really fast to make that real, Dave.
Cool. Let me throw one other thing out at you before I hand back over to Rob. I was fairly impressed about some of the early work that you guys are doing in tying, in this case, Workato in an embedded way into some of these vibe coding platforms. Can you just touch on that a little bit? Because the sort of idea of vendors collaborating with each other in this space is kind of interesting and in some ways somewhat unique as well.
Yeah, the vibe coding is amazing. So like the ability, you've all seen the magic, you put in your intent, either a tool like Klein or Cloud Code or Replit or one of these, and like magic comes out. And that first mile goes so fast and so smooth, it's extraordinary. But I think what everybody's seeing is like to get to a production app, like not just a website, but a production app or enterprise apps, so all the things that enterprises really need to run your business safely. Like I don't know about you, like it's easy to say kind of enterprise and pejorative, but I want my bank running enterprise apps. I don't want them just guessing at how to like do payments and stuff. So we found a really neat opportunity to combine the best in the business vibe coding platforms like Replit, who we've been working with what Workato can do. Get that sort of fast front end experience layer really dialed in. The people using the app can express what they want and instantly modify it. I got a story for you. And then all the middle tier and back end that makes it go, that like real business data from real systems and tables that are needed for state and all this stuff just kind of hard to manage. We know how to do that. So Workato with our AI assistants is like vibe coding for enterprise processes and enterprise connectivity. And so we have done an integration with them. We get some new stuff coming next week that I'm very excited about. But Replit plus Workato is a really great solution, and customers got excited about it. I'll get a story for you. So as a customer, I was a customer this week, and they told us about their initiatives. And one of them is a new app they wanted to build for their employees. It would be like their customer-facing app. They're in the food business. The customers can order and stuff. No, this really great app. So while they were talking, I vibe coded in Replit and then just pointed out that like you do the front end in Replit, do the middle tier and the back end in Workato, and connected all their existing systems. They got really excited, but like it took 10 minutes, like it wasn't like I go back and Inch team to like prototype something. Like we literally did it while we were talking. It was really fun to see the potential.
Brilliant. Rob, over to you.
Great. So Adam, if I could kind of think about like how I might describe where we are, in this AI journey right now, we might be getting into that, as Gartner would call the trough of disillusionment, right? So the MIT study comes out, McKinsey, IDC, there's a lot of studies coming out. But we know where this is going, right? Because we're old, we lived through it with like PCs and the web and client server, all these other technologies before. We know that this is going to be a really powerful change, that these applications, these processes will be reimagined in a fundamental way. And so this is actually a great time, I think, for enterprises to be investing, because there is real value to be had right now. We know that. Where would you advise folks to be thinking about where to make their investments right now, where we can start to see value, and then maybe where to be a little bit more cautious?
Yeah. So the trough of disillusionment, right, is
From a Forrester guy of all things.
The bowling alley of despair. I don't know. There's like all the different metaphors here. When I had a privilege of going to business school early in my career, like I just had this window where it made sense. I went to business school part-time, and they put you in these teams, and the teams are like people with different backgrounds and stuff, right? So like I'm like the techie, and there's another guy in the team who's a finance guy. There's a woman in real estate, like all these different amazing people. So we're doing this case study, and it was like, what's the benefit? I'm like, oh, we can do this and this and this, and the kind of typical technology, excited about the potential. And the finance guy is just like, how many dollars on what day are generated from this initiative, from this product or initiative or whatever? Like, so I learned a lot, like come back to the basics, like technology is always making promises. It really is disruptive stuff there. But the heart of it is like, what business KPI is this going to move for me? And like there's a whole class of co-pilot stuff of helping people with productivity that I don't think is going to pass the test. You give your employees a minute here, a minute there. That's great. They may be happier. That's awesome. You should do that. But does it really help you drive your business faster? We have to aim higher. We have to think bigger. We have to think about, the uncomfortable work of transforming our core processes and operations, taking advantage of agentic AI, giving our, pushing intelligence into the processes to make decisions. And that might be running experiments and proposing feedback. I'll tell you a story. We built a Genie, our agents, for outbound marketing. And we used internally first, where we released to customers. So this is like your prospect, and you're looking around on the Workato website, you webinar, all this like corporate stuff that you might do. And that's signal. And so we build an agent that takes that signal and then decides how we follow up with you. So if you like check out our pricing page and fill out a lead form and all that stuff, like we really want to follow up with you. You're probably an interested customer. But what's the right message in that follow-up? And it's kind of a complicated marketing problem, like for this person and their background and what they're interested in and their company and all this signal, all this stuff. So we took a Genie that takes an experiment-based approach to solve that outbound marketing problem. And it runs automated outbound emails and other ways to reach people. And it runs experiments and then reports back in the results. And if it likes experiments, it suggests you push this into production as a new way to reach these kinds of users. For example, certain industries, respond better to different messages. Certain days of the week and times are better to send emails. And as it learns, it puts the stuff into its memory, and then the agent works better. So a self-improving agent. So if you step back and looked at what we learned and built over time, it's a self-improving agent that operates against a business KPI, outbound lead volume and open rate, business KPIs, and it self-improves. And that's just a higher bar than I think a lot of AI projects right now where they're looking at productivity steps. So summarize, hard of this is going to be business KPIs. This gets us through the trough. There's tons of potential there. And I just encourage companies to think like we did in some of our Genie projects, like other people are doing in the world, and really focus on transformative process level KPI moving agent projects.
So I love that story. These stories are starting to emerge. They're really interesting for the audience who might have listened to Alex Landis, one of the founders of the FinOps Foundation, a couple of weeks ago. The challenge, remarkably similar, but it's a FinOps challenge, right? Somebody spins up an AWS instance. Why did they do it? His job is to control costs. Was it done for a sales opportunity? Was it done for extra capacity? Was it done for data sovereignty reasons? Was it a huge project? It takes him and his team a long time to figure out why they did it. Agents can be proactively looking for these things, especially if they have access to all of the different underlying systems in a secure way. And it's interesting because I think all of the really immediate use cases they seem fundamentally different, but under the covers, they look much more similar than different when you look at sort of the problems that they're trying to solve. And it is often orchestration of data and processes across silos, and creating a layer on top of that can understand why things are happening. I'm 10 years into the thing saying your business processes do not respect your organizational boundaries or your legacy systems. It's just sort of, we're finally able to kind of break through that. Hey folks, quick break. If you like what you're listening to, hit the like button, hit the follow button, share with other like-minded folks. If you want to engage a little deeper with analysis.tech, with myself, with Dave Marcus, with John Reimer, the godfather of low code, or Francis Carden, the godfather of RPA. Got a lot of godfathers because we're old. Andy Bartels, who's actually really our oldest guy, who was the chief economist at Forrester for many years, Rick Greenwald, who was one of the principals in the data practice at Gartner. A lot of folks here who would love to engage with you. You can find us at analysis.tech, as well as the research we've been referring to today and all of the additional research we have out there, all for free. All you have to do is sign up. Back to you, Dave.
Cool. So I'm going to dive a little deeper, Adam, into some of the topics that you were talking about earlier. So Rob mentioned earlier this MIT study that came out recently that talks about how many of these AI initiatives are failing, at an extremely high rate. People are not necessarily getting the value out of them that they should. We're all bullish around this AI thing for the long term. But I see all kinds of crazy things, happening right now. For instance, you talk about metrics. It's fascinating to me that when I talk to a customer and they say, we are measuring our AI success by the number of agents we're deployed. It's like a weird thing for me because in the days of like microservices, no one measured success by the number of microservices they had deployed. And yet we've got this like weird thing. And so, how do you think about where organizations should really focus around value, and where's this trade-off between, AI for productivity versus AI for real business?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's value in AI for productivity. Like people like it when it works, and you don't want to take that out of employees' hands. So what Anthropic is doing with Claude, OpenAI, there's some real productivity benefits there to be had for sure. Yeah, I like your more is not necessarily better. I think we went through this phase of experimentation where every IT department and business threw a bunch of stuff at the wall. Every vendor hit them up, said, buy our AI, buy our AI. And so a lot of experiments bloomed. And then I think we got we got daisies, we didn't get trees, like a lot of little flowers look cool and then died. And you have kind of a weed left afterwards, not like a tree, something sturdy. So I think a rule of thumb of stuff that I look for is when I talk to customers is best practice seem to be really having a clear business outcome you're trying to drive. Like if you can't talk about the metric that you're moving inside of the business, like ability for orders turned per hour, things like that. Cutting, for example, this customer and food service, cutting the non-productive time, the setup and teardown time of the shift setup and end of shift time, cutting that so they can be more productive, more selling hours versus their labor hours, things like that. Streamlining the order process, they can produce more orders per hour, which is a human component, obviously, like a human mechanical, biomechanical component. But I guess a rule of thumb. Let's see. Let's boil it down to something the listeners can take away. I'd say if it doesn't touch more than one application, or one system or database, if it doesn't touch a couple, it's probably not going to be needle moving. If it only lives in one app, it's probably not going to be needle moving because your business doesn't live in one app.
Yep.
And the people that built that app would have probably already built it for you if they're really good, right?
Oh yeah, they would have happily built that if they knew how. You know, they probably did. They built all the features they could think of, right? Everything's got Copilot, everything's got data summaries, and as soon as you write inquiries, it's
and
all
they will
done.
happily tell you if you want to solve problems that live outside of our system, then bring your problems into our system.
Just bring everything in.
Bring everything into. We will not name names, but just bring all you.
Yeah. First, the quick migration,
which is another non-starter in terms of success. Hey, so I would argue, and we would argue in our research, we have another document. I'm sorry, I'm pushing so much research today, everybody, but it is our podcast. So we recently put out a governance model for enterprise AI success, and within that, we talk about two factors that we think are really critical to success. One is business value, which we've talked a lot about during the course of this podcast, but the other is risk aversion. The MIT study was really clear. A lot of these things are failing because they go from pilot and then governance, risk, compliance, security, someone else shuts them down. So we have to start thinking about all of these things, which Workato thinks about pretty much all the time, but we have to be thinking about these things as well. But there's an organizational implication here, right? So we built a RACI chart out in that research document, and it's like, oh, we've got security, we've got privacy, we've got legal, we've got HR. How should organizations be thinking about the organizational investment and shifts that they have to make to take full advantage of what's going on now?
That's a great question. Hey, I think if I step back and I try to just look at the industry broadly, I think we went there are a couple of pendulum cycles, like with the rise of PCs and then the internet and SaaS and mobile. And SaaS had a lot of departmental buying where departments would buy the line of business solution they needed that made sense for them. They didn't wait on IT, and then IT had to support it. I think we've moved back to an era where IT has more control, and CEOs and boards and employees and customers expect the stuff to work together. And so purely departmental buying doesn't really work. You have to kind of have an enterprise architecture and make things work. If the sales reps talk to the customer but don't know about the cases, it's like a non-starter. If the e-commerce is great, but then the order fulfillment system is terrible, that's bad. So I think we're in an era, just to set context, of IT really has the role of making the things work together. Even if they don't build it all, there's less custom app dev, but they have to make it all work together. So I think that's the starting point. And then I think with all the AI hype, there's some technologies that have a lot of promise, but promises being made that are not really being delivered on today. So I'll share one little dirty secret if you want, which is MCP. MCP looks like a really hot way, model context protocol, to help an LLM-based agent like ChatGPT or some agent talk to different backend systems. Really cool. It's the protocol's tell me about the tools you have. It's oh, I've got these tools. Okay, I want to call this tool this way. And it's here's how you call a tool. And back and forth. And sounds really neat for a client, agent, to talk to a system that you already have. Okay, there's no auth or identity management or shared identity management or access control or rate limiting or governance in any of that. It's completely out of band of the protocol. So yeah, actually, there's a distributed system problem here that's totally unaddressed by the protocol. So to go from a pilot of ChatGPT or Cursor using an MCP server to actually making it work for 10,000 users and 100 apps and the hundreds of tools, you need an enterprise MCP platform. Full stop. Will not be successful. And and most people aren't talking about that yet, but they're running into it as they go from little pilots to production. Literally every customer I've been to, I was in Tel Aviv a week ago. I was with 2 customers this week. It's the same story. They have their MCP pilots. but they have no path to prod without an enterprise MCP platform. So, these are lessons I think the industry has learned before. IT is pattern match these things
Yep.
before. It's not new, but it's going to be needed. We offer that. I bet we won't be the only one, but we're getting a lot of interest in enterprise MCP, so people can take their pilots that look good and then take it to something real.
Yeah, it's a great point. It is sort of like, I hate to shout out to us old guys, but it's like we've seen these things before, right? So the minute MCP showed up, Rick Greenwald, our data guy, goes, "Oh, it's SQL injection all over again," right? They just aren't thinking about the ways it
Yeah.
could be exploited. And then MCP was almost immediately exploited, right? Somebody got access to somebody's entire Google Mail or Gmail or something through, we see these things before. I also appreciate this idea that IT diligence needs to come in and take a grown up stance in this room, because I do think there's a lot of offerings out there where we have folks behind the companies and folks behind these offerings. So where it's like, this stuff is easy to solve. You solve it all with AI. And it's like, first you do that, then you get on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times, and then you fix the problems. And let's just maybe skip that middle step this time.
Yeah, and it's the same stuff. Like every one of those MCP open source MCPs are really, really cool. Where's the logging? Where's the token management? Where's the access control? Where's the governance? Like the 1,000 lines of MCP server code also needs 20,000 lines of enterprise code. There's no workaround.
Yeah.
You get it from somewhere. So
You're exactly right, Adam. I mean, we're seeing the same kind of thing right now with like A2A. Concept is super interesting. And then when it comes to like real deployment of orchestrated agents doing interesting things together, it's a fair amount of heavy lifting that you have to do to make that work properly in a way it's expected, in a way that's predictable, in this sort of unpredictable world. And it's important to be able to deliver on those things. And people just need to be really clear about the fact that, a cool new protocol doesn't just solve this problem overnight.
makes good marketing. It makes good marketing.
It makes good marketing. All this stuff is,
Yeah.
and it makes good hype, and then you end up in the trough. So
I have a piece of advice for your viewers though that I've seen that's a good test for me when I talk to customers, which is ask them about their eval set. So like if they're looking at some agentic solution, A2A, whatever it is, how are they going to know if it's working well? What is their data set of examples that they're not gonna pollute their agent with in the prompt, but hold back and use to see if the thing is meeting their needs? And so it's kind of like testing in the early days. Like, do you really have a good test suite? But I'd really advise your listeners to think about a really good eval set that you'll use for your agentic projects. So you can just look at numbers and know if your system is working well. And you'll learn more and you'll make your eval set more robust over time. But a really important lesson from the past to bring right back to this AI world.
Great advice.
Yep.
Thanks, Adam. Hey, listen, enough with the softball questions. We got a tough one to close out on. What's the best breed of dog?
Oh, well, you guys are being fun here. I love every dog, and I've had some great dogs over the years. I have a Bernese Mountain Dog, and she's adorable. And after her first day in the office on Monday, she's officially been named the Chief Marketing Officer. So she fits right in the office, and hopefully will get us noticed out there in the world.
I'm a big fan. The correct answer, by the way, is Golden Retriever, and I am a big fan of dogs being part of our work environment. So this is Teddy's
keep us
first time on the
grounded, don't they, Rob?
broadcast. On the podcast, Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Great content, great connecting with you as always. If you want to find Adam, you can find him on LinkedIn. He's very active on LinkedIn, great content. And also, again, check out Workato, workato.com. Check out Vijay Tella's podcast in addition to when you've done with Adam's, and please check out our research on analysis.tech. Dave, Adam, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate your time.